Nitrogen loss to the environment occurs through stock grazing on pasture and crops. It can be a particular problem in Otago and Southland, especially during winter on heavy soils. However, there are methods that have been developed to reduce this loss. Some of these are being evaluated at a dairy trial site in Southland. AgResearch scientist Ross Monaghan explains.
There has been an evolution, really, I suppose, in terms of our understanding of whereabouts on a farm the hot spots for nutrient losses are. And we've identified that good riparian management, fencing and planting is very important. We moved on then to look at the importance of effluent management. And now with the good practices that have been identified and are being advocated by the industry, we think that we have the technology and the understanding to apply effluent safely to land. That has now led us on to looking at the remaining chestnuts, if you like, the hard nuts to crack, which are back out in the fields. In this case here, we're on a milking platform. In terms of nitrogen, the difficult nut to crack is to try and minimise the amount of nitrate leaching that occurs underneath the urine patch that is deposited in the field. Ruminants in general, they will excrete roughly 80–85% of the nitrogen that they take in. They excrete it in concentrated urine patches where the nitrogen that is returned in those patches is far in excess of immediate plant requirements, and typically it exceeds it for a period of 6 to 12 months. In an ideal world, we would get those animals to excrete much less nitrogen and send more away in products such as milk. Probably the first step, and this is where the industry have been good, in using the currently available nutrient budgeting tools that we've got, such as the overseer model, to make sure that the amount of nitrogen returned to paddocks and blocks isn't excessive. And the nutrient budgeting tool can help identify how much nitrogen is coming not only from fertiliser, but also from clover fixation, from effluent that might be applied, and also from the amount of nitrogen that may be imported via imported feeds and supplements. So assuming you've tidied up that aspect of your nutrient management plan, the next thing you would be thinking about is seeing whether other mitigation technologies could be used. And one that we've looked at here in the south is this nitrification inhibitor. The commercially available product is a product known as dicyandiamide. Researchers at Lincoln University showed that this chemical could reduce the amount of potentially leachable nitrogen left behind in those urine patches. So work we've done in the south has shown that on the milking platform, the pastured areas, it might knock off 30 to 40% of that nitrate loss. This is a trial site that we have where we're measuring the footprint from the winter forage grazing under a dairy cow scenario, and in terms of losses of nitrogen, the forage crop is probably losing between 2 to 4 times as much per unit area as the pastured parts of the dairy system. What it seems to be showing too in this trial is that there is also a correspondingly high loss of those surface water contaminants such as phosphorus, sediment and fecal bacteria. The importance of the forage crop units, although they're a small percentage of the total dairy system area in this case, they make up a relatively large contribution of the total farm environmental footprint in terms of water quality. And so it makes sense for us to get a good handle on that footprint and identify ways in which we can reduce it. The one thing we're doing, and it's showing up in our research, is the importance of back fencing the paddock as the animals make their way across it. So when we get those wet days, potential for a lot of soil damage, if we're back fencing, it limits that damage just to that day's break. And that much reduces the level of soil damage and consequently runoff. Another thing we're doing is fencing out this part of the gully that we term a critical source area. So that's where all the transport or the flow is occurring. And we'll do clever things like making sure that the animals only come into there at the end of the winter, and when they do come in, they come in quickly, graze it off, and then they're kicked out of there. So we don't lose too much yield, in fact we lose very little, but we just protect it because that's a critical part of the landscape.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.